All right, this is the February 7th, 2022 Town of Groton, Connecticut Conservation Commission meeting. My name is Bruce Lofgren from the Office of Planning and Development Services. The chair of the meeting is Larry Dunn. This meeting is being held on the Zoom virtual platform. If any members of the public would like to speak, they can do so during the public communications portion of the agenda. We will call on you individually one at a time if you raise your virtual hand. With that, Chairman, you can take the roll and we can start the meeting.
All right, I'll start off. Larry Dunn, chair. And we'll start with Michelle.
Michelle Fitzpatrick, secretary.
Kristen.
Kristen DeSanti, member.
Ray,
Yeah,
you.
A new name. Ray Rafferty, Vice Chair.
And Ann.
Ann Schmidt, member.
All right, and both Ann and Michelle have been re-upped, if you will, formally for another term as members of the commission. So congratulations and thank you for your past and future participation. All right, so getting on. Do we have any attendees? Just out of, I don't.
Yeah, one.
Okay, we'll get there. All right, so the first one is approval of minutes from January 10th. It was published in the agenda handout package. Does anyone have any comments on that? I see a hand up, Kristen. Oh, wait, several hands up. Kristen?
Yes, my name is misspelled in section 4, I think 4A.
Well, that's standard.
I know, but I will not let it rest.
We want to do that once a month.
Yeah.
All right. Ann?
Let's see, on page 4 in section public communications, Chris Kuhn, her last name is misspelled twice. You just flip the U and the H. So the first time is correct, K-U-H-N.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay. Any other comments? Look for a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
So move.
Seconded?
second.
Second.
Michelle? All in favor? Raise your hands. All right, that's unanimous, Bruce. And this next thing is public communications. So we did have somebody out there. I don't, let's see who we got out there.
We have Eugenia.
Eugenia.
And we see your screen right now. I don't know if you want us to.
Oh, she just,
Who? Was that me?
Highway 1,
Yeah.
whose screen is that?
Yeah, we see, yeah, Big Sur, looks like.
Sir.
Oh,
I can help you out.
what happened?
I think I can.
That brings back memories.
There.
there she is.
Sorry about that.
Hi, Eugenia.
Hello, everyone. It's nice to see you all. I'm not going to take up very much time here. There are just a couple of things that I wanted to speak to. First of all, I wanted to say that our whole group has received a copy of the YouTube video of Larry Dunn's participation in the Economic Development Commission's meeting. When was that? February 3rd?
Last Thursday.
Yeah, and on data centers, and it was absolutely fantastic. We really, we're already, getting some chatter online about it, and we thought you did an excellent job with that. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions about that, about more information that we would be interested in. Like for example, do you have an approximate idea of how much power? I know they say the GU can provide that, but I would like to know more about that. And that, because I know that that's probably the most important thing that they're going to be consuming. I'd also like to know more about water consumption. How much, I think you did mention something, but I didn't quite catch that about water, the impact, the environmental impact on water. All I can think of is, those times when we have droughts and when we start having to conserve water, the thought that we would have a water hog in our midst where, the business would go down if they're not able to use water is really a daunting thought. So there was that. And then you mentioned, and I'd like something about the 380 acres, the 2 land parcels that have already been purchased. And you said something about how some of it was state, some of it was private, some of it, these different categories. And I was wondering if you had any more information on that you could share with us. And that doesn't necessarily have to be at this meeting, but just maybe in a separate email or something. And then I also was interested if there had ever been any proposal from Got Space to do clear cutting to install solar panels, and how important a part of any data center's plan that might be.
All right, well, later on the agenda, I was going to discuss data center.
Oh, okay. I didn't see it on the agenda.
Well, it's under chairman's comments.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Buried there. So we can address all your questions at that time.
Okay, good. Then
So any new items that you wanted to raise?
well, yes, and the other item had to do with your open space inventory. I, of course, have been on that inventory, looking at it, as you know, Larry, trying to come up with a percentage, and I was just, and I was at the last meeting speaking to the 30% goal, 30 by 30 by 2030 goal the last time. And I don't know if I said at that time that I wanted to follow that up with a comment having to do with how it seems as though that inventory is incredibly inclusive of every imaginable piece of property in the town of Groton, from tiny little pieces of land all the way to, the kinds of lands that are connected in the greenways that you all are spending a lot of time developing and thinking about. And it seems to us that given the number of tiny parcels, very small parcels that have very little environmental significance, that they're contributing to getting Groton to the 21%, and we are at the 21%. And we were just wondering what would happen if you were to have 2 different types of open space inventories. One that had much stricter criteria for inclusion, that focused more on larger parcels of land, forested parcels, land that protects waterways, the land that protects habitat, especially for, rarer species, the kind of things that conservationists are more interested in seeing added up toward a 21% total. And then since we're already at 21%, we're only talking about 9% more. And I didn't really have time to figure out how many acres that is. But I'm pretty sure it's not a lot of acreage that's available.
All right. Well, the purpose of making the viewer available to you and other conservation groups was to get feedback. Clearly, we know that there is a discussion and debate on definition of what open space is. And we have to be somewhat careful. There's a state definition, which is followed with the POCD, which is what we've used, and changing that definition, I think is something that would have to come out as a recommendation. But by having the viewer, and because of the tables and the information there, you could pick your own definition and make a case however you like. I mean, so as we get through this, then certainly, that could be feedback that you would provide with a specific definition, and given the data in that viewer, you could come up with what that percentage would be by your definition. I'm not saying the town council would agree, the state would agree, the staff would agree, but this, you certainly can have your perspective. And that was one of the things that we were thinking of when we did the viewers. Should there be, different slices, different views? I think there's 13 views in there. Is it worthwhile to have something else for it, for a little bit different purpose? I understand where you're going with that question, but there's other ramifications we just have to be a bit careful of. We will get to that. I want to give a little bit more time. I'm going to then go out with a follow-up memo to ask for people's formal input. And I would like those in writing to me, and we'll consolidate them and then have a discussion on what we want to put forward as recommendations to IT to modify, change, etc. Right? Different than action, taking action on any of those different slices. So I'll leave it there. So if there's any discrepancies or any recommendations, certainly, feed that back to us. We'll get to, as I said, we'll get the data center later. I appreciate your feedback, and let us see. Zooming right. Oh, the objectives in section 7. So we did put it out. I did get feedback from 3 of the members, and I did consolidate those. Did that get in the? I'm trying to remember the one that's in here. Is that? Yeah, I think that is the latest one, based upon all the changes. Correct?
Yes, it should be. It's the
Yeah.
last one you sent me.
Let me. Let's see, what do I want to do first? Let me bring this up. Okay, so let me do a screen share. I got screen share privileges, right? Okay. So this was the candidate list. Oops. And the names that folks volunteered to. And then I took whatever feedback from all this and put it in that document. As I go through here, I think some of these are already being done. And the only, the only one that's, I won't say new, Kristen, but there's not specific ongoing actions, it's not a continuation, would be the pollinator pathways. The EDC, which we just talked about working with, and I'll give an update on that in a little bit. That's kind of ongoing. This one is, and I'll give an update on this. This is being pushed. So I'm not sure something gets deleted. I think in the natural flow of what we're doing in the action plans, we'll kind of touch on these. It's more of a question of emphasis rather than is there anything here we want to drop. I mean, that's my take on it, given our last discussion and the feedback. So, you know, my view is it's all in the action log. So does anyone have any objection to just saying in general this, and then obviously this has been translated to the action log, is going to represent our 2022 objectives, or at least work on it. I mean, obviously everything's not going to necessarily get completed. Is that fair? Okay. So having said that, then let me get out of that. And let me open this. I'm going to open the Excel version, not the one I just put this in front of everybody's face. Hold on, let me find the share. Here's my share thing. Share screen, bring that up. All right. Now, it's kind of teeny tiny print. So you're probably gonna have to follow on in the in the actual agenda handout. I think the couple of things I want to point out. If you go through this list, and I kind of made it so that it was like gray, and so I changed the color coding so it'd be easier to see. So updates, meaning there's a change in status from our last meeting, is in yellow, and then complete is green. So there's one green one on here, you'll notice, but there's quite a bit of yellow. I guess, so my point being, kind of to my earlier point, we are kind of working on a lot of these. I think that, the intent is that these then wind up to be line item on the agendas as we go forward and as we work on these action items. And then this just becomes kind of the tracking mechanism. If there's no objections, I think how we'll go forward is that this is our baseline. I mean, when they're green, I usually then hide it so that we're only dealing with latest ones. And we'll start highlighting in our meetings the specific line items as topics, some of which we're actually going to do today. Because on the Greenway, the Yukon project, unprotected parcels. I mean, there's a number of things that we are going to talk about today, and we may not talk about every one every week. So is that agreeable to kind of proceed on that basis? All right. So any additional comments on any of these? I guess the yellow ones, or the white ones, which means that there wasn't any specific action that someone would like to modify or change in today's meeting? Yeah.
Sorry. I did start doing, let's see, what's the number of it? Hang on. 7.2.7.4.
7.2.7.4. Okay.
So that's the one looking at the amount of open space, the location of open space, and ensuring social justice.
Correct. Yeah.
And then in the comment section, it says that the town council wants an assessment of the city versus the town. And then it looks like maybe, I don't know if Tom or somebody put some things in about the Greenway. But I did start looking at that, and I guess I'm a little, because it's not, so the city versus the town is one thing, and then social justice versus open space is kind of a different thing as I see it. And I'm happy to look at both of that. I also was wondering if who on the town council was looking for this, just to make sure that I'm approaching this in the right way.
Well, with the new members of the council, I guess I'm not sure of that answer anymore. So I think that that's an inquiry, that we will have to go with. So let me, unless Bruce, do you know of anyone on the council that's kind of the lead or the sponsor for open space and social justice?
Or maybe John Burt might remember.
I mean, Bordelon was the last, I mean, I know he talked about it a lot. But I think it probably is, I was gonna say behooves, lovely language, to ask who is going to be taking up that mantle. So I guess between Bruce and I, we will take that to go back and say, is there, a contact point or someone on the town council that is going to take that one to heart. So that's really more of a sponsor or a lead. And I guess I should put that to the mayor or to the town manager or both.
Both.
I'm looking for some guidance there, Bruce.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would suggest going through the mayor and the town manager. You might as well, and then kind of, they can facilitate it from there.
All right, I'll take that as an action, Ann, to see who because if there's not a sponsor and an advocate,
Right.
then it's now meanwhile, the definitions of that is in the conservation plan. We did define and took initial whack at it. So it's really, I guess, refining that or using the inventory data against those definitions, is certainly the place to start. And now that the viewer does have a city versus the rest of the town split, view that database, then, we could certainly do that.
Right.
Anything
And
else on that topic?
Just one additional thing. I did also look at the city's plan of conservation and development. And I didn't compare it yet, but it seems like in the different, this goes to what Eugenia was saying about how you define open space. And they said that they had 16% open space and they have roughly 2,000 acres. But on different maps, they had different things labeled as open space or, so anyway, I didn't use the tool. Anyway, we can talk about that later, but I am working on that one.
All right, we did take a slice, which we believe is the town, the city, quote, open space. But then there's also the category that says, is it
Managed.
managed, recreational, et cetera. So depending on how you want to do that second slice, you come up with different numbers, which makes this whole percentage thing problematic based upon the definition you want to use, right? Back to Eugenia's original point. And everyone's going to have, this is the way I'd like to view it. Well, that like I said, we got to be a bit careful and start with the definition and then give the percentage. Okay, any other comments on the matrix? Okay, so let me go to the open space steward workshops. What did I have for that? Okay. So this one was last meeting. Let me share this. About putting out or setting up, how do we do stewardship plan support? So I think, Michelle, a lot of this is in your bailiwick. So
Yeah, I drafted something a lot rougher than this and Larry made it really pretty.
I made it pretty, yeah. So I kind of put this together based upon Michelle's original input. And, you know, obviously this needs to be approved by the commission before this gets published. So the intent was, and you know, as it starts to supporters of conservation, right? That really says, can we have a workshop that starts from the stewardship plans we've created? And where do we go from there? And the front end, as it just says here, is we've developed the management plans. You know, I put a link to the conservation website, which all those 17 plans are listed. And basically it was this, is to schedule a workshop to discuss the prioritization of parcels requiring action. Now, last time we did say that the Birch Creek set is, you know, is the one we were going to prioritize at least first. We did have a required actions, and that I'll show you, I'll share that. Michelle updated that, so we have this consolidated action log by parcel, and which I think would be, I think I was gonna attach that to this.
As, to give to them, you mean?
Well, yeah, to hand out, because it's
Right, yep,
it's
Yep,
not
because
new
the-
data, it's just all the 17 ones, and it's just
Right.
consolidated in that one list. So it's
Right.
not, just made it a little easier to look at, here are the things that we've identified.
right.
So I thought that would be a good add to this. So it'd be kind of an add to number 2. And the real key to the workshop, or the objective of the workshop, says, now, how do we go about implementation of those actions? So the first, I guess, to re-ask the question that we asked last time, that we're still want to do a workshop, and after talking with Bruce a little bit, is if we limit that to a subcommittee, meaning less than a quorum, we don't have to go through publication, you know, documentation, all kinds of things that we would do, you know, for a formal commission meeting. And so my thought was that,
Oh,
yeah, so
okay.
you gotta think about that, right? So my thought was that the parcel subcommittee group, or perhaps reformatted, but 3 folks that would take the lead on this and not have to have the formalities of a legal conservation meeting. All right. So that was, yes, go ahead, Michelle.
So maybe we do this in 2 steps. Do kind of a first one like that to sort of get a sense of, you know, sort of refining it, and then maybe have a bigger one that we do a bigger invitation to do more specifics, right? So start with like the known people, and just 3 of us kind of hash out some of this, and then have a more refined list for getting, because we want to get we want to get as much support as we can. So you want to make it as broad as possible, which means you want the public information,
Right.
you want it to be official and all the other stuff. But the first one doesn't have to be. We can do sort of a trial run with the subcommittee, and then maybe decide from there if we want to go to something that's a little bit bigger.
So I'm sorry, Kristen, you have your hand up.
Yeah, no, I was kind of say something along those lines, that I think ultimately you want to have a lot of people, and the way you're going to get a lot of people is by having it be a publicly, you know, broadcast and publicized event. So I like the compromise idea. Start with a small group, and then, but then ultimately I think it should be a, you know, a matter of public record where it's a lot, you know, that way a lot of people see that it's happening.
Plus, you want the whole commission participating, right?
Well, no, yeah, eventually, regardless, we would have to do that. I'm just,
Right.
so it's almost like it's
So you're just talking about a launch, like a mini, like a
Yeah,
soft opening type
a
of
mini
thing.
launch that says with the key concert, like I said, supporters of conservation. So it's not, you know, anybody out there, but we're going to send invites to the folks that are in our, you know, on our website. We have like 5 or 6 or 7 different groups that you know are active in the community. It's kind of have a workshop at that level with just a subset of 3 from commission, then we can go one of two ways. Then the next step would be a full commission one, so that we can review the results of that and get agreement on, a public hearing, which would be something next. Now, if we want to do a public hearing, Bruce, is that something that we as a commission could do ourselves? Do we need some formal approval mechanism to hold a public hearing?
A public hearing just as the Conservation Commission hosting?
Yeah,
Well, I mean, I don't know if you need an approval. I mean, we'd certainly have to put it on the website. It really depends how you want it, publicly advertised. I mean, if you want to use, the town's social media platforms or things like that, you would need approval. If you just wanted to put it on the website and I don't know, advertise yourselves or distribute amongst, some stakeholders and people, then not necessarily, but either way, we'd have to put it on the website and I'd have to draft an agenda. So I guess you don't really need an approval to hold a public hearing.
well, I don't, yeah, I
Or
guess.
special meeting, can't we call a special meeting like anytime we want?
Well, yeah, but that's true, but that's different than where it gets published, because right now is, like new conservation news kind of gets only on the conservation website. It doesn't get on the front page. I mean, these were compromises that we did to get the website. So I think it's one that says, number one, I didn't hear anything that we needed town council approval per se, but we would need, let's say, John Burt or John Reiner's approval we want to do a public forum to discuss stewardship of Groton, town of Groton's open space lands and or the city, I guess we could include that, and do it in conjunction with Parks and Rec, and just have that as a non-binding kind of a thing, information gathering. And I've seen Parks and Rec do that on a number of things. Then after that, then there'd be something that's a little bit more formal, depending on what we then want to execute. And if we need resources beyond which we can tap, right? Assuming we get the 25 grand in there to use that for, for the stewardship stuff, that's some monies, is that to cover, that's kind of like step 3 or 4 to go back to the town council per se. So I would suggest we'll do this a step at a time, and we can realign as we go. So the first step would be a smaller group with 3 members with minimum bureaucracy, I guess is the word. And my idea was, we had the parcel subcommittee, which did a lot of the groundwork in creating the stewardship plans. And I would like, the thing is that the best folks to continue that. So I guess I'm looking, so I'll sign, Tom's not on the meeting, so I'll sign him up. So that leaves 2 slots.
So since I'm kind of the one that did this in the first place, I think I should probably be part of that.
I agree. And so now we have a third slot to participate in this event, I guess, to lead the event. Out of Kristen, Ann, and Bray. So that's,
Well, I mean, I'm supposedly working on this plan. I'm really trying to really get myself going with the pollinator pathway business, and also paying attention to the compost. Like, I could be a person who just shows up, but I don't want to be in charge of anything for that.
well, the thing is, we don't gonna have 3 members quote show up
Right.
before it becomes
Right.
a meeting, right? That's, yeah. Ann?
You have February on this. I was just curious if you wanted to have that initial meeting pretty soon. I'm going to be traveling, but I can do it otherwise.
Well, I was gonna send a letter out in February.
Oh, sorry. Then I'm fine. I should be
It's
able,
not,
I
it's
could
not
do it.
out. So the first thing would be for the group of three to agree on the timing. right?
Perfect.
Okay.
I was gonna suggest, since Bray's been so involved with these groups, he might want to do it, but Ed, if you really want to do it, I would love to work with you too, so it doesn't matter to me.
So you got,
happy.
you want to duke it out with Ann for the privilege there? I guess not. He's not fighting for it.
Bray's silent.
Silent.
Crickets
I don't
from
know.
Bray.
All right. So,
All right. So me,
I have
probably
a
Tom
quick-
is,
I have one quick question,
yep.
and that is, on this, where is Parks and Rec representation on this?
They're going to be part of this session.
yeah, I actually had a list of my suggested people. And I don't know, I can't get to that list. So it was GOSA, Avalonia, the conservation advocates people, Parks and Rec. I had whoever the people, well, I originally had the Birch Plain as an idea, so I had the Birch Plain people, and then whoever from the districts that we've already talked to about champions, the town council people or whatever.
Yeah,
And then
the
I have a
art-
friend,
yeah.
I have a friend from Con College that's in charge of their volunteers that wants to start teaming with us on this. So I was going to invite her as well. So that was kind of my thought for the initial invitees.
Yeah, and I'd like to, get a co-sponsor with Parks and Rec, maybe, bring them up a little more formal in this.
That's a great idea.
So I'll tell you what, so for the next step, that Michelle, why don't you and I offline do another round on this based upon the discussion we just had.
Okay.
We'll get this out and work out a date that's probably going to be, I'm thinking March.
Yeah, I'm traveling in March as well. So we'll definitely have to check the 3 schedules of me, Ann, and Tom and see
Right.
who's going to be around when and figure that out.
All right, so I'll turn that part over to you. We'll work out the rest of
Okay.
it, and then the timing would be that.
Right. And I'm thinking on this, we should have the list of who it's going to so that people know who the other people are that we're thinking about.
Yeah, no,
And
I
they
agree.
can,
But-
and then have them suggest other people that might be interested.
And I just want to add that if you start inviting other groups, official town groups that, also go by the same, you can't have a quorum rule, then you kind of need to emphasize that. So I mean,
Okay.
so let's say you asked, the Parks and Recreation Commission, I mean, they also could not have, a quorum present, because then
Oh,
we have to
really?
advertise it as their meeting.
Yeah.
So-
So yeah,
Oh, okay.
gotta be limited. Yeah, that's why we got to actually get with, Mark Berry and talk about, with the
Yep.
participation, right?
Yeah, I guess I'm just kind of wondering why you wouldn't want to just call a special Conservation Commission meeting and just, have the public be able to attend as well, and if they wanted to, and then you don't have to worry about any, issues with a quorum, or,
Mm.
having 4 members show up and start discussing the same conversation, or let's say you have, a certain amount of counselors that want to come and start discussing. But I guess then it's a joint workshop at the council. But I mean, it seems like if you want to include that many people and have it out there to that far of a stretch, I would think there's no harm in doing a special meeting that's advertised. But that's just, then you don't have to be so careful, but that's just, my advice.
All right, so noted. Although I do like it, kind of walking before we run, because just trying to get folks involved in this, because each one of these other groups, most of them are doing some stewardship programs on their own. What we don't want to do is, kind of step on everybody's different toes. And it tends to be the same set of folks that are volunteers. All right, so with Kristen?
Yeah, it might be good to just have like sort of an information gathering meeting with members of these lot of groups, just because if they're already doing a lot of stewardship management, more so than we have as a group, that, maybe that's another avenue, just to invite them to a small group meeting with 2 or 3 members of the commission, maybe you that are on the team, and gather information from them before you give a workshop.
And actually, Kristen, this is Michelle talking. This is what I was thinking this original one was. It's mostly to pick the brains of the people that already do this and say, hey, what do you think for a group? Like we're not gonna do it ourselves. We need to find people. What's the best way to do this? And how do we do it without impinging on your volunteer base, right? So that was, I was kind of thinking this was about, was to get ideas from them.
Yeah, and especially the point you said is not try and pull from all the same pool of people. Right, because it does, we don't want to create tensions, we want to create synergy, so. All right, I think I know enough to move forward on, so Michelle, Monday. So sometime this week, Michelle, will I'll
Yeah,
schedule.
if you wanna beef this up based on the discussion and then run it by me and we can talk about it. Will that work?
Yes. Okay, that is that. Oh, the action log. Hold on, let me. Now, I think the action log was published, right? So.
Yes.
And I just brought it up here. I'm not sure there's a reason to go over that at this point. I mean, there's a lot of details here. Less actions than one might think. But there is.
Yeah, I added all of, I went back into the list that the file Tom had given me, and I added everything that was in there. So this should be pretty inclusive now.
Yeah. So it's not bad, but the thing here is volunteer coordinator. I mean, that's the whole thing. That's the whole point, right? Of why we're trying.
Exactly. How do we get those?
How do we make these actionable, not just a wish list? All right. So I don't think we need to do that. The next topic was Greenway designation. At the January 25th council meeting, that was presented. It was Tom, well, Mark Berry. Tom did most of the talking. And I was there for moral support. I didn't have to jump in at all. So Tom took care of everything. So he did a good job, and there's unanimous support for the application. Right, so that one we can kind of check the box on that. With thanks to Tom for bringing that over the finish line. On the 2022 budget recommendations, last time we were told that the 25K was submitted in the budget. Is that, Bruce, is that still in the budget?
Well, yeah, the way it works is our department submits our budget to the town manager. The town manager reviews it and submits the town manager budget to the council. I don't think the town manager's budget is official and out yet, but it was in our budget proposal to the town manager. He will consider it, but I don't anticipate that being something that's cut from the budget.
I'm thinking of just dropping a note to John about, gee, we just went over our 22s. We're talking about getting stewardship plans together. You know, one of the purposes of that 25K would be to support the stewardship of the open spaces that we have, something like that, just to reinforce perhaps. Although the other flip side of that is, keep our mouth shut and maybe won't, don't take any attention to it. Because that is a small item in the town budget. I mean, from a percentage point of view. Yes, Kristen?
Because the 25K, isn't that for acquisition of open space? We don't want to
It doesn't,
squander.
it doesn't quite say acquisition
Hmm.
specifically. It's somewhat general. And the thing is, 25K doesn't, unless you spend the next 20 years at 25K, you're not going to be buying anything, right? And the Wolfbrook property is an example of that, where it was, what, 800K? But the price I know with a little bit of variation, but there's a considerable chunk, and it's kind of an effort in and of itself. So given where we're at, I see that any acquisitions are going to be an independent effort, and that these, the small line item budget we want to do for conservation works. And that's kind of, matter of fact, that was my next discussion point here, is what is the, how do we want to spend that money? And I thought there was two things to spend it on. One is on implementation of the stewardship actions. And the second is a degree of support for that whole sustainability program, of working our way in that. So, I had to, there's not a lot you do with that amount of money. So I was trying to limit it to, one or two items that we could focus on. But I'm throwing this open for your comments and feedback. On allocating the 25,000 or things we would like to do with it, assuming it's there. Yes, Kristen.
Again, I would like to bank it for a rainy day, whenever that might be. And ideally, if that's set aside for acquisition, then at some point, if some other needs, maybe the town finds something else in the budget, like we have land that we already own as a town, it needs some kind of maintenance and stewardship, that's got to be in the budget. Like, I don't think you should be using the open space fund to just maintain, because how would you ever grow, and I get a lot of it's really expensive and it will take more, but let's say a big grant comes down the line from the state, and there's if we can raise 100,000, they're going to give us another 100,000, and we could put our 25K towards that, and it would do something. But if we've spent it on maintenance, it's gone. So that's my opinion, that we should save it for acquisition. But
Other comments? Ray?
I agree that it ought to be just set aside at the moment into an acquisition fund, or the way the current fund is been set up, and not necessarily. And then as we go forward and we look at what stewardship is involved, do we need to make some contributions out of that fund at some time in the future? That would be a discussion, I think, at that point. But right now, that fund was designated as helping to acquire, protect future open space. So just keeping that same theme, at least presently, and I would just leave it at that.
Other comments?
I agree with Bray.
So right now is keep our powder dry, it kind of what it sounds like, versus, early allocation against stewardship plans.
yeah, the other thing is, if you get the town in the habit of, well, if you want to maintain open space, you have to use that part of the budget, then that's going to be what they're going to expect in the future. It's more like, no,
Well,
that's
you
acquisition.
do have to recall that they tried to raid that 3 times to do
Yeah.
just that in the past.
Yeah, but we got to be vigilant about
So I would much rather we control that rather than
Mhm.
taking it to do a paving of a parking lot someplace. There's always the danger that if money is there, that we don't get any control over it. Right, versus us taking control from the get-go. But that's just me. All right, so I'm trying to decide, do I need a motion? But there's seemed to be I guess 4-1. I guess I'm in the minority here of an early indication that we want to manage the distribution of those funds for stewardship or other activities. The consensus here is to keep our powder dry, reserve that for the future, but leave it alone for now. Is that seems to be the 4-1 consensus here?
Yes,
Mhm.
Man,
agreed.
man, I lost that one, Bruce. Okay. Okay, moving right along. The next topic is status of unprotected parcels. So I asked Bruce if staff could provide us an update on that list of, I think it was 52 or so parcels that we couldn't determine protected status.
Yes, and we did do a little work on that. Let me just share my screen. I didn't get into the packet, but I can share with you guys tonight. Okay, so what I did here was, so this was the memo that Larry and, well, I guess the whole commission drafted and sent to the town manager back in October. It was the list of the 55 town parcels, you know, stating that you want them to be looked at, and it kind of initiated the whole process of, you know, what does the town do when, you know, a property goes bankrupt, the town acquires it, what is the process for determining the use of that property? Is it set aside for schools? Is it set aside for public works? Is it deeded, is it determined to be open space? So that exercise was helpful because the town looked at that process. But what I did here was I looked at the parcels and I put them into 5 different categories, really. They're acquired through foreclosure or purchase, so they're kind of unassigned right now. The yellows are open space, is noted in the deed, so it is open space and it should be updated on GIS. Green is accepted as open space and there was an error in the deed and it needs to be revisioned and it needs to be revised and updated on our GIS. Blue is, we don't know, it needs research and there are a few of those. And that research was probably going to be, you know, it could be extensive, you know, mostly through land records, and a lot of these parcels were acquired a long time ago. And then the other was acquired for a purpose other than open space. So those parcels that are purple, it's anticipated that they will not be open space if they are already determined not to be open space already. So I obviously I can't go through all of these with you tonight. I can email this to everyone, but I did want to show that we just finished this up. And if you have questions on any specific parcels, I'm happy to go over it. But this is the list of the 55 here.
All right, no, I mean, that's super. I mean, it's exactly what we wanted to understand where things were. So I think go back up to the color code, the legend. So I think my thought would be that yes, you published this to the commission, that we look at it, and obviously the 2 that come to mind is the yellow and the green. That indicates that, by the way, we need to update the records, not just in GIS and or the inventory, but also does there need to be does the town council need to take formal action to, I guess, put it in legal form, or you found the legal form, we just didn't have it before? Which is that in those 2?
The green would be that I guess the actual deed on land record should be revised to state
Okay,
open space.
okay,
And
so.
there aren't too many of those, but there are a few, I think.
Okay, so I think we want to get to the point that says the thing that needs to be actionable by the town council would be the green,
Mhm.
which says provides direction for the town attorney to provide modifications to the land records to make sure this stuff is there. I mean, I think that's where we're going with this, right?
Yeah, that wouldn't necessarily require town council action, though. I mean, that could just come from any one of us or at the town manager's direction to just ask the town attorney to draft something up for those.
Okay. And obviously we want to get the viewer updated, which then kind of adjusts the percentage. We talked about percentages a lot. So yeah, I think, which ones, by the way, is everything been put into one of those buckets? Or is there still some being looked at?
I don't think this is all 55 of them. Oh, no, this is all 55. So yeah, I did.
Okay, good. All right, so I think what we need to do is, yeah, get this out to us. And in terms of follow-on actions, you're right, is clean up, the two easy ones, obviously, is clean up the records that need to be cleaned up and update the inventory that needs to be updated. And I guess our agreement was that we would funnel the information into NOAA. We haven't got the steady state yet. Bruce, I mean, is that, that where the process actually works so that the land records get changed because somebody bought or sold something, that would go right through into NOAA, wouldn't have to go through us. I think we initiated this, and I noticed it's still on there. It's now, he changed it to say it's the Conservation Commission viewer versus the town of staff. And I understand the politics and why that would happen. So I think given that we need to make a request to NOAA to update the viewer records based upon the information here. And any legal changes would have to be a request from us to you that says how the staff wants to fix, I guess, yeah, it could be yellow and or green to fix any updates in terms of documentation to support that. We did talk about a new process and procedure earlier on foreclosure or purchase and how that would go through, and that's fine. All right. But the blue, I guess the blue ones is the ones that it's still questionable, right? Open for needs research. I think that's what you said earlier. So
Yeah, and we'd love some help on the research if anyone has time.
that's what I'm looking at. So how many acres are in that? You got 8.
Some are smaller than others. So yeah, I mean, this one's 8. 0.45 acres, Drozac Drive. 0.8, 0.9.
Yeah, you got
22.
22 acres. Yeah, 22 and 6. You got about 30 acres. That certainly looks like the one to look at first. There's maybe only 1 or 2 to look at based upon that. All right, so we may, yeah, the rest of them are small. I mean, I'm not sure we need to worry about the sub-acre ones at all. I mean, I think we can all agree to say, do we care, right? But there are about 3 in there that add up to a total, as I recall, about 38 acres between those 3 parcels, and 2 of them are adjacent. So I think those might be the ones to focus on first. All right, so I think we have the actions there would be input to NOAA on the ones that have
Can
been
I-
clarified. Yep.
Can I ask Bruce a question? On this list, how far back did the town acquire some of these properties? Is this some a more recent list? Or is this something that some of these properties go back 15 years and no one's looked at them?
Some go back much further than 15 years. So this list here came from your research. I think Tom did most of it.
Yep.
And you guys provided us this list, and it was actually, really helpful for us because we found some errors that need to be revised. But that's the reason why some of these are in blue, need research, because some of these deeds that I was looking at, they haven't been changed since the 40s or 50s.
Got it.
So,
Yep.
I mean, we could have had these properties for almost 100 years in some instances.
Thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, so I know what we need to do on this one, so appreciate you sending that out, Bruce. No, this is good stuff. I mean, this is exactly what, our intent was when we sent it over to you guys. So tell the staff that thank you from the Conservation Commission for the follow-up they've done. And I should probably send a note to Bert for that recognition as well. So I'll put that on my things to do list. Okay. I think I skipped over it. Let's see, where did that go? Was that open space?
It's
Oh,
about
you-
3 things, Larry.
I skipped over a couple of things, didn't I?
Yeah, we're on Yukon project.
Yeah, right. You kind
2022.
of, okay. My fault. I kind of just skipped over. I don't know why. Oh, I know, because we were talking about it and I just kind of went to it. All right, so you recall that we had a Yukon project in 2021. Let me share the screen here. Where's the Yukon project? Is that it? That's it. Okay. So I've been on that. There's nothing been agreed to yet. I've been toing and froing with the OPIM folks up in the Yukon. And the first stuff is just kind of background information, which you should know about. So with the toing and froing between a little bit of discussions originally with John Burt, and then discussions with the Yukon folks, kind of came up with something that says, how do we get the carbon zero in the town, right? And so, what's the carbon footprint the town has currently? What do you do to improve it? And the first thing in anything is to measure what we're doing, right? Put aside the pricing thing for a moment. That's a whole different discussion. They were looking for a little support on the funding. So, what I said is, well, unless there's deliverables, it's not worth anything. And we had no upfront what the deliverables are going to be. So I started messing around with these, and I've got a call into John Reiner to have a discussion on deliverables and what the town would be interested in. Not scheduled yet, but I did tell him I want to talk to him this week. So this is kind of where I was at. Is first was an emissions inventory, which says between the vehicles that we run, the buildings that we own or lease on, waste-related emissions, and there's the reference article in here is the whole, I guess, sponsored site on greenhouse gas emissions and how one measures that stuff. And that's kind of a baseline is, well, how much stuff are we spewing out? The second thing then says is based upon best practices, what should be our greenhouse gas emission objectives over the next 5 to 15 years. And then the third deliverable would be what actions can Groton do to reduce the emissions to compensate and offset the emissions, planting more trees, for example, or putting more solar panels on rooftops. And then the third one is neutralization of emissions, was doing something with what we got, right? Scrubbers on, if we got, I guess schools have a lot of generators and things that they emit stuff. I mean, is there something we do to reduce the emissions there? I mean, just things I was throwing out. So I guess my point is that this is kind of the orientation I was thinking of. I was looking for your feedback and or comments and or other options or approaches. I remember we got four or five seniors with systems management, business kind of backgrounds. So it's, a semester of labor, basically. Yes, Michelle?
I think this sounds really cool. It'd be interesting to see what kind of information they came up with.
Right?
Didn't there was a task force a while back that tried to establish the town's own properties footprint? Zell Stevens, I think, was head of the group.
Yeah, they had 2011, they didn't, it was general. They
Okay,
spent more time on what I would call a sea level rise.
Yep.
And they talked about emissions, but there was no specifics. And so that was kind of the point, is, you just can't talk about it. You got to go, we're putting in 30 tons every year from the town of Groton vehicles. I have no idea what we're putting out, right? We want to get down on 20 tons a year, right? How do you do that? I mean, so this is taking the next level. It's kind of like what we did on our plan, right? The stewardship plan versus actions versus execution. So we're trying to get down to the next level versus the call. I view what Zell and their team did was a call to arms, which was great because it got everybody to go, yay, verily, we agree. We fund the
Right.
position, but there's no actions, right? So,
Well, I
yeah,
wondered also, has the town itself looked at it at all at their buildings?
to my, that's my discussion with John. To my knowledge, no.
Okay, yep,
But I want to verify that with, with those discussions, because I'm assuming they haven't, which is why there's value to kind of putting a baseline on what we do, right? Because it also allows you to then go for grants and other things to do improvements once you have measurements in place on what you're doing. Anne?
I think this is great too. I seem to recall in some of the task force meetings, maybe hearing that something about greenhouse gas inventory that Groton has done. So it's definitely worth checking to see if what has been done. And utilize, it's also, I think, part of what the new hire is supposed to be doing.
Yep, I agree, but
I don't know.
we don't have a new hire,
No,
and data collection, everything else is this
no, I
is
think this is great. You got to start somewhere. And especially if it hasn't been done at all yet. If anything, I would say if anything has been done, it would be good for these folks to at least be aware of it.
Kristen.
Yeah, I seem to recall that I heard that there had been an energy inventory, like an energy usage study done in the town. Not that recently, but I think some people were going to revisit it. Some people at GCA, I'll try and find out more about that study. I think it was at the time they were trying to reduce energy use, whether it was by light bulbs or whatever, but that might be a jumping off point if a thorough inventory has been done, just to see what that is, because it's related.
Hey, Bruce, do you know of any inventory that's been done in the past?
Yes, I do, and I can share these with you. So we have, the town of Groton. It's kind of hard to see. Town of Groton Municipal Greenhouse Gas Inventory completed in August 2020.
There you go.
That could be useful. The other one we have is the town of Groton, and this was in 2018, the effectiveness of town energy efficiency and conservation actions. This too, I don't know where these are electronically, but I can scan them and send them to everyone if you're interested.
Yeah, would you do that?
Sure.
Yep, that would be
Didn't the
helpful. 'cause
town
I
just
I
do
couldn't
a,
find them online.
I would like to see them too, if possible. Thanks, Bruce.
Yeah, no problem.
Bruce,
Right.
didn't they do a fundraiser or looking for grants to change out light bulbs in the town over to LEDs?
They did that.
For municipal buildings, we did, yeah. We also did, obviously, we did the streetlight project, which I think everyone's aware of, where we
Right.
changed all the streetlights in town to energy efficiency LED, but we did that in municipal buildings too. I don't know how long ago that was.
But I wondered if you had some sort of data set prior to doing that, so that you could, as Larry was talking about, of having steps along the way to see some sort of beginning and then compare everything back to it.
can
Even
look
if it's a rough calculation.
All right, so it looks like there's general agreement that this is a good direction. Needs more work. I'd like to look at the information that the town has already done and then work with town staff that says this is, a worthwhile endeavor that the town would embrace, I guess. It doesn't do a lot of good for us to work on stuff and the town doesn't accept it or do anything with it or whatever, right? So that's why my next step is to have discussions with the town. Okay. So I know what I have to do there. And let's see, Conservation Commission website. I think this was the month that we didn't actually do changes in. So we didn't add any stewardship plans. And I don't think I updated, I might update, well, I guess that's my question. This is February, for the February release, we talked about a number of things. We have the stewardship action log. We have the updated conservation plan action list, the yellows and greens, et cetera, which is out there. And I think there's about 3 or 4 iterations out there. So I guess my thought is that again, this is more of a repository, is to publish those items. My point being, yeah, it's in the agenda, but I've had an awfully difficult trying to find something in an agenda. So the search functions to me are not very good. So my thought would be to publish those 2 items in the next one. So if no one has, I'll do it one of these, is if there's without objection, I intend to publish those things that are in the agenda today and get them out there, those two logs. All right, don't hear any objections, so web publication.
Can I add something?
Sure.
That recently I was looking for a current open space map and was frustrated that there wasn't a quick link over to find one. So when I went to the planning department's maps, I liked where they listed out the different maps they had, but their open space map they have is 2016. And we certainly have added more detail to it than what that is. And then the second one was the bicycle master plan, their open space map, but that was 2004 or something like that. I was actually looking for the one that that showed the 490 open spaces, things that we've were using as we were developing the plan, and didn't had trouble locating them. And I thought it'd be nice that if we had one of those maps pulled out and stand alone, but if you wanted to click on it and just orient yourself, you could do that.
Well, the viewer has the 490s as a layer, so that's in there. It also has the open space maps.
Now,
And
this is within the plan, the conservation plan?
no, in the conservation, in the viewer, in that online viewer. Right, so those are in there, and one of the things Noah was adding was the Greenway's map as a overlay to the viewer. So the intent is that the viewer would be the online resource. And we had a lot of discussions about when that goes public, and we're working our way to making that public access. However, having said that, if you want to extract from that a specific picture, I don't have a problem taking that one picture, putting that in as a document, on the website. We've agreed with the town, we weren't going to go public with the viewer yet, but we could put in, one of those, an extract of a map. So if you think that's valuable, then my suggestion would be is go into the viewer, extract a picture of some of those maps that you think would be beneficial, and we could certainly put those into the docs and resource pages on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments? That's on the website. Okay, so I'll add that to the website. I think, I guess the open space viewer. So we kind of talked about that. So I talked about that earlier. So I did send a letter out based upon our agreement last month. We kind of did some toing and froing with the town on what we couldn't do. So like I said, I guess the compromise was to rename it the Conservation Commission viewer, not the official Town of Groton viewer for now. And given that, then we released a beta to the conservation groups, right? And you heard Eugenia earlier today talk about that they got it. And I will do a follow-up. I'll do a follow-up memo. So the memo was, let me know any feedback you have, any changes, comments, et cetera, et cetera. We're starting to get that community feedback on it. To the viewer. And I will probably do that later this month. And in there also is the About tab. I think last month we presented and agreed on the definitions to add in. Those have been added in, so If you've been tracking it, it's in the tab way to the right about, and then there's two tabs there. So the legends are now described with definitions. So we get this whole thing about what's the definition of ABC that's in the tables. Those are now in there, right? So that was done. Any questions or comments on the viewer status? All right, we did 4.8. I went out of sync, out of line. So but we did that, so I can check that one off. The next one is Trail Day 2022. So did that go out? Yeah, Michelle?
Well, yeah, I guess Trail Days in there. I was just gonna say, what you're showing on screen has nothing to do with what you're talking about now, because you still have the old thing up. So
Yeah, no.
either get rid of it altogether or put up the agenda or something.
Nope, it's gone.
Thanks.
All right. All right, so Trail Day 2022, I think that was in the handout, wasn't it, Bruce?
That was, yes.
Yeah, Trails Day email. So that's in the agenda. And it was, let's see, when's the date? June? When did they say it was? It says in there. That was June sometime. Anyway, the point I want to do is that looking for someone to take the lead on Connecticut Trails Day 2022 for the commission. And kind of sort of waved your hand.
Well, I had to find the unmute. Is this going to be an in-person one, do you know, or is this going to be self-guided?
Oh, God, who the hell knows? I mean, I'm guessing I am thinking that by the time we get to June, that it won't be virtual. You know, we got all screwed up last year, right? Because of COVID. I think my guess is, the assumption is, from what I'm seeing, is this is going to be going back to the good old days where you actually could go out in a group and walk a trail. So that is my operating assumption. Could be wrong, but I think that's it.
Okay.
Well, if I don't have any volunteers, then I don't now have anyone to support it. So now Tom brought
Larry?
up, yep.
Larry, we can't do all things for all people all the time.
Hey, Kristen, I'm just saying, I was just going to say, then we wouldn't support it. You know, so the point is that I don't want to do I was going to say something I don't want on tape, a partial job. So at this point is, unless Tom steps in, because he's not here, unless he steps into it, is the conservation is doing a pass on Connecticut Trail Day 2022. Okay. The next item on the agenda is, let's see, I don't have anything open, right? No, okay. Is the National Estuarian Research Reserve status. Good news is it's approved. Yay. So it's formal, it's approved. There's a couple of documents. Did I send out references, Bruce? Is that in the agenda?
I'm not sure if we had anything on this, and
Yeah, okay.
Just an email.
Yeah, online, there's what's called the Connecticut NER MOU. Let's see. Oh, geez, this is a long document. Hold on. What the heck is the top of this thing? as you can see, is that government stuff generates lots of paper. 338 pages. Okay, let me let me share, not 338 pages. I just want to okay, so there's the research management plan of 2022 to 2027. So this is more of a reference for you folks to look at if you want. What I can do is, I guess, Bruce, I can send you the link and you could forward it to everyone.
I can do that.
So let's send link to Bruce. And there's two documents. This is 300 and something pages. The other one, which I thought, this is the MOU. So this is specifically getting into the nitty gritties. And I kind of highlighted a couple of things that, in terms of what's going on, so you can kind of read it here. Ensure adequate long-term protection, management, lands and waters, including within the boundary in accordance with applicable laws and regulations, which is interesting. Now, I think it's 54,000 acres is the Connecticut NER Reserve. Now, I asked Bray for his opinion. I think that Groton environment, I think, is like 5,000 acres. I mean, that was kind of my guess. Do you have a better guess, Bray?
That's a good, right now, that's as good as one as any.
So it's, I kind of thought because we kind of jutted down, we might have a little more, but there's this, they really went deep. The closer you get into, the more west you get, I guess it got shallower, et cetera. So it seemed to have more area that as he started going, past East Line and over to the Connecticut River. But it's still about 5,000 acres. And what's the town acreage? I'm trying to remember offhand. Are we, what, 20,000? I should know that off the top of my head, shouldn't I? Come on, guys, you're not helping me out here.
I should probably know it off the top of my head, but I can't remember.
It's in the viewer. We listed it in the viewer. So I know where to get it. But it's a pretty significant amount of area. When you look at it in relationship to everything else. So I just thought that it's something that we need to kind of keep an eye on. And my discussion today was going to be, what, if anything, we want to do. So there's a lot of funds and et cetera that get managed by and get access to. There's research and monitoring programs, which would be useful for us in terms of the sustainability and the rising seas, et cetera. And then there's workshops and activities and materials, et cetera, that they do. So one of the things is that there is programs that's called advisory groups to the Connecticut NER. And I guess my question let me get rid of this. We don't need to keep this up. My question, Bruce, I think is, well, I have my own opinion. I'm going to throw it out there. Should the town of Groton formally be part of the advisory committee, which the Connecticut NER has as part of its charter? The advisory committee says there's local representatives of government or groups, et cetera, that then work with the NER team. And I was kind of thinking, Bruce, that it probably should be a staff function. Maybe it's part of the sustainability one, but one I wanted to throw out to you for discussion, with I guess, John, about what role, if any, the town of Groton wants to have with the new reserve that's basically is the whole southern end of Groton. And there are things I think we could gain from it, and I think the town could leverage some education, research, information, et cetera. But I didn't think, I thought about it, and you guys could disagree with me. I didn't think it should be a conservation commission role. I think it really should be a formal town role. But let me throw it out there to any of you guys in terms of your view on this. Because Bray, you know more about this than the rest of us.
Well, they're going to be designing programs to research, collect data towards sustainability from the Connecticut the lower Connecticut River, all the way over to roughly Mumford Cove. And I reiterate that Larry and I had an email back and forth about where they're going. I think right now, they are having money come in. It's to see where they're actually going to put the money now. So I'm assuming there's a certain pool of money that they have to start with. And what are their priorities? I don't know if in those documents that you have, whether or not they'll say, okay, the first year we're going to do this, the second year we're going to do this. I don't know that they really, because one of the things that I read was that they weren't going to put any people in the organization, actually appoint people in the organization structure until something like July.
Yeah, well,
And
yes, it's the rollout, I guess, is slow.
slow. So,
Yeah, but they got hundreds of pages of documents. So
right. Well, they can produce documents and
right.
write down lots of things, but the actual rubber on the road is yet to be seen. I know there's probably some strong interest up on the Connecticut River, but I'm not quite sure what the starting point will be here for Groton and Bluff Point, Haley Farm, and what level of research they're actually going to do, and then what component of that research beyond researchers they'll have an outreach into the community for community groups and community interest that we can participate in at that level. Now, what they're going to do and then how we can dovetail into that. I totally agree with you that we should stay on top of how this thing is developing as it goes along. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to be patient on what the rollout really is going to look like. So it may be 6 months from now that we can ask a really good question. Okay, is what level of participation do we want this to be? Is it the Conservation Commission, or we go higher to say the council, or is it what sort of money is out there, to participate in that? What type of volunteer activities are they looking for? I have no idea at this point. I think there are discussions going on, but I don't know that anything has actually been set on paper yet.
Well, I think that's the point, is how do we track this? And I guess, Bruce, my question was that I didn't think the Conservation Commission should track it because it's either money flows or participation in grants or participation in programs that would feed data into the sustainability department or whatever that's going to be called, rather than us. So I guess that my net of this thing was to give you an action to at least raise the issue. I mean, I think Bray's right. This is a slow moving train or a horse and drawn buggy, whatever, that it's not, we're not talking about this. It's more that says, looking out, is it something that would serve our best interest in the long term, just to throw oar in the water and say, hey guys, when you're ready to talk, we're ready to participate. but it's going to be we're talking years of activity, effort, and return on investment. But it may be a good leverage point, right? Given, where we are and et cetera. So I'm just throwing it out there. Is sometimes if you get in there early with very small participation and small activity, that you can kind of leverage things that you couldn't if you kind of went, what happened? People have already, it's already passed you by. So that was just my net to say, I think the staff ought to take this up and decide what you want to do rather than the commission. Fair enough?
If you're asking me, I think so, yeah. And Larry, that advisory board you're speaking of and kind of how that's set up, is that, where can I find that information?
It's in the documents that I'll send you the links to. But the way it was structured is it really was inviting local municipalities to participate. Right now, I mean, the Braze point, what the hell does that mean? But it seems like it's better at least to say is, keep us aware, keep us informed. Yeah, we're interested because it's our shoreline, right? Versus, do whatever the hell you want and let me know what you've done after you've done it. It just seems to me that, that we ought to be proactive rather than reactive. That's just my point. I don't think like I said, I don't think this is a big deal. And I think it'll be months and months before there even is a meeting of the advisory committee. All right. So now we're down to report of chair. Okay. Data center activity. Oh, God. Okay. So I've had meetings with, now let me preface this by saying is I kind of went forward with two hats. One is a resource to the town is a guy that knows a lot about data centers. And the other one is as chairman of the Conservation Commission, right? So I have two different hats. So I want to be clear about what I say, when, to whom, which hat I got on. So when I went to the EDC, I first went and said, let me provide some background and information about data centers so that the EDC has a more informed basis on which to make decisions. Then, because I had this discussion with Bill Groves beforehand, they say, let us, and I had it with you guys, it said, let us form a joint working relationship between the Conservation Commission and the EDC, because what we want to do is make sure that the decisions are correct one for the town. It involves environmental impacts as well as economic impacts. And the EDC agreed, at that meeting they agreed. So this is kind of I don't know how unique it is, but it's really collaboration between the two commissions that have two ends of the spectrum. And as we go forward with this process, and I'll give you my view on the process in a bit, that going together with a common, hopefully we can agree with a common position, would be a lot more powerful in front of the town council than if we went individually, right? With potentially not quite aligned objectives. So we had agreed upon that at our last meeting. EDC agreed upon that their last meeting. Then, so the question is, okay, now what do you do next? Well, the thing is that in my meetings with the Johns, I had expressed my point of view as a IT professional that this was a bunch of BS. I don't think I said that word. I probably shouldn't say it here either. That I had my suspicions that this was real, right? And that this was whether, an arbitrage or somebody trying to capture the rights to a data center. and then market it to somebody else, because there was nothing I could see on a business plan that made any sense to me. I think last week I have heard, Bruce can correct me if I'm wrong, that GotSpace is selling their rights to this set of stuff, Groton specifically. And there's a new player, and I don't know a heck of a lot about the new player. So I think my question to you is, who the hell's a new player? And I guess you don't know.
No, I don't know. And I don't think too many people from the town know too much about it yet. This is going on. They're coming to the town council meeting tomorrow. So we're all going to learn a lot more tomorrow night.
Yeah, no, I did see that on the agenda for tomorrow. So I kind of said, guys, let's not get too excited about this. There's a long, long process to go through. And there's so many different, depending on what they want to build and how they want to build it, it has dramatic impacts on the environment. I mean, Eugenia talked about how much water they consume. I don't know. Are they using reclaimed, reused water? Are they going to you flush it through their system? It depends, right? Solar farm. I do have one answer for her. I think when I calculated out, it was like 260 megawatts of power that they were using, which means that you need about 1,000 acres of solar farm in order to power that. Well, we don't have 1,000 acres unless we put it right on top of the NERV. We have 5,000 acres, so we got a lot of acreage there. But it's kind of like, well, that ain't gonna fly. I mean, you're not gonna get the power from solar, right? So there's so many unknown questions. I can't get that excited about it until such time as that there's a real proposal where we can ask real questions. And that was my response to John Burt when he said, hey, could you give me some questions? I said, I don't want to bother giving you questions because there's no real proposal, right? If there's a real proposal, I'm more than happy to come in and provide, support to the town and whatever advice and counsel I could give on what the hell to ask, right? These new guys, who are they be? Yes, Ann.
I just for clarification, it sounds like GotSpace has basically bought the land already?
No.
Oh, I didn't think so. So
No.
how do they have rights to the data center that they're selling? I guess
it's the state was offering a tax incentives for people to build data centers.
Yeah.
In order to do that, you have to declare, I want to develop those data centers. And so they signed an agreement with the towns, Groton being one of them, that said, if we build a data center, we're the guys that are going to build it and we get the tax credit. And we tied that up for 36 months. I think it was 36 months.
All right.
All right. So that's what it is. It's kind of like talk about development rights, right? People
Kind of like what? I didn't hear that. Sorry.
Development rights. It's not, they're not buying something specifically, but they're trying to acquire rights. Now, part of it was there were 17 acres for the town. There was another 6 acres of state land, and then the balance of 38 acres or something like that, which was Polson, I think, land. So there was this whole mix of land that would have to have been kind of orchestrated. And nobody's bought anything. And this, like I said, this whole thing is theoretical. So that's, I'm not going to spend a lot of energy until there's some real proposals on the plan. Because I don't see a business case, but yeah.
But I guess I'm still a little confused. So there was no like vetting of who were multiple people bidding on
There's
this?
no bids.
Okay, so the town just went into an agreement with them.
The state.
Or the
came in,
state.
The state came and said, would the town go into agreement with these guys? Gee, we want to have data centers built. right? And if you, when you read the contract, there's no liability to the town. There's no commitment to actually do anything. It's just saying, hey, if you want to do something, yeah, we're willing to do it with you. But there's so many things that have to be done before that. It doesn't really, it doesn't require anything from the town to do anything, basically. Right? So.
Does it require us to do something with the people that they sell the rights to?
For the duration of that agreement, yeah. But it
Okay,
doesn't mean you actually have to do anything,
right. No, I know.
right?
But it's just very odd, I think. I mean, going to that website and our data centers, and there's 7 of them listed or whatever.
It's all presentation-ware. There are no.
Yeah.
data centers.
And it looks like they really wanted to build like storage facilities more than data centers. But anyway, okay,
So
it's
that-
just very weird.
No, it is. So that's why I'm saying, guys, don't worry about it. There's enough
Okay.
people that are keeping their eyeballs on it. We'll see what happens tomorrow. I suspect we're really not going to get a lot more data tomorrow, Bruce. That'd be my bet. It's going to be a lot of arm waving. And, oh, gee, we'd like to. Wouldn't it be great? It'd be wonderful. But, as I said to EDC, the objective of building a modern data center
Yeah.
is you don't
That's
want
right.
people there. You don't generate a lot of jobs, hardly any jobs, right? So, put that aside. Then it's a question of, well, if you can give me all these tax credits, then why am I doing this again? Right? So, I don't, it's a very strange thing.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect any new plans or proposal or anything like that tomorrow, but honestly, they have not talked to the town at all, so whatever everyone hears tomorrow will be new to us too. So, I mean, and if they haven't been talking to us, it probably means they don't have many details to ask us specific questions.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm not, let's see, that's, oh, yeah.
Question, Larry?
Yeah.
Can I ask Bruce, since we're talking about big scale things, what's going on with the Mystic Oral School at this point?
Actually, it's kind of similar that the developers haven't talked to us at all yet, but I think there's a developer coming in who's working with the previous developer, potential developer, to possibly take over the rights for what they've done so far and come in with a new proposal. What that new proposal is, we have no idea. Will it be scaled back? Will it be housing? Will it be active adult community? We don't know yet, but
Well, that's what it sounded like, at least in the paper, was active adult community, smaller scale, et cetera, et cetera. So, again, sometimes you got to let this stuff play out before everybody gets their, everything all tied up in the short. So don't get excited, don't get nervous. We got a long ways to go on this one. The other thing is, all right, so the annual review memo, which you approved last time, was released to the town manager and forwarded to the town council. The way we left it is, if you guys want us to come in and talk to you, let us know. We didn't request time on the agenda. That's kind of where we left it, and that's where that is. The Wolfbrook stewardship, I did send that letter out with the stewardship agreement. I did get feedback from Mark Berry. I did not get feedback from GOSA. Mark made the comment, following points. He wanted to take Flanders Road out and make that as a separate parcel plan. He wanted to, well, I guess part of this was, Bruce, to the point we talked earlier, let's make sure we got the deeds and the rights, et cetera, all sorted out, right? Which is yeah, that's kind of what we want to do anyway. And he did indicate something which was news to me, is they're exploring, this is Parks and Rec, the creation of a trail steward position. So Michelle, take note. Responsible for routine trail maintenance, project development, oversight, volunteer coordination, potentially jointly funded position with town and other land management organizations or grant or service funded positions would be a good first step. Da, 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 da. Now, I will point out that there are discussions to kind of create, we have GOSA and Avalonia, and there's a few other conservation or ownership groups, is to consolidate that as a regional conservation management and take over professional management, if you will, for stewardship, that all these different parties are part of. That's in the early stages. That would be interesting as well, because that would kind of give a different scale to this whole thing. So there's a number of things going on in this area. I mean, it's all good news. I think it's all kind of moving in the right direction. It'd be great if there is a trail steward position. Now we got somebody to work with, right? So that just came in Friday, I think. So that's fresh news. So that's why I mentioned, even though the letter didn't say that, is that this kind of prompted me to say, gee, we should be more look at a more formal participation with Parks and Rec. It'd be great to do that jointly with the trail steward person. All right, so that's that. Then I attended the bike pedestrian meeting. Tom Olson normally attended that. I kind of backstopped him. There wasn't a lot going on there. They did talk about trying to get more formal and getting a kind of a city plan for, and they talked a lot about pedestrians, cars, and bikes, how those things go together and coexist as you go through, and what do you change with roads, a lot of things. Not a lot of discussions on what I would call our kind of prime objectives. So I don't have any actions or follow-ups or to-dos from that session, other than, that they're kind of working through that, and portions of the crosstown trail and those other things are going to be in that, what I would say, coexisting with bikes and cars. So I think that part of it is obviously of interest to us. The other thing that I had was the Connecticut Land Conservation Council is doing a series of community conversations dealing with land trusts and how, and a shared view of the New London County, its land and how people work together. It's kind of my earlier comment. I think they have a meeting scheduled. Well, one was tonight, and the other one was, I think, on, oh, let me get out of that. One is on, well, I thought it was on my calendar. Uh-oh. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Huh. Oh, there it is. On the 15th. So a week from a week from Tuesday. And I did kind of put my name in, or got a reservation to go to that. If anyone else is interested, I think I could send you the, I think you could sneak in. Is anyone else interested in that? Okay. Not a problem. And that was it for what I had. And the next item on the agenda is report of staff. So it's back to Bruce.
Sure. Yeah, I don't have too much to add. What happens since last meeting, we issued the RFP to hire a consultant for the downtown Mystic Resiliency and Sustainability Plan. That is, bids are due by the end of this month, so we should interview and have a consultant on board mid-March to start the process. And then, shortly after that, we're probably going to start holding some public workshops, and we'll certainly include you and invite the commission at that time. Yeah,
Okay.
but That's really the only thing I can think of with conservation sustainability that's happened in the last month.
All right, any other, oh, Kristen?
Just regarding the plastic issue, remember Chris Kuhn gave us a presentation last week about the fact that Walmart and CVS in particular are handing out these really thick, heavy plastic bags. They want to meet with me tomorrow to begin to rewrite the ordinance that we passed. And I thought, I know, Bruce, you were involved in drafting the ordinance, and I think that the objective is to change the wording of the thickness up to, I think, 12 mils, which is kind of environmentally recognized by groups around the area. So I just want to kind of get you all's feedback on that, to take it back to them. That is that something that the commission supports in general?
That you're asking us as a collective whole?
Yeah.
Question?
Mhm.
The bags that they sell, the bigger bags that they sell at the grocery stores for you to recycle, what weight are those? Are they,
Well,
not the paper
these,
bags, they're plastic meshed with whatever's. other
yeah,
material.
those things, those permanent ones. Yeah, I don't know the thickness of those, but those are thicker. The ones they're giving away at CVS and Walmart are sort of under the wire. They're over 4 mils. I don't know the specifics of the size, but
Yeah,
they're not as thick as that. They're not, you would never pay for one of those. They're giving them out free, and they're
Right.
giving them to everybody. And it's instead of the lightweight little bags that they used to give, now they're giving out these really heavy duty monster bags, disposable plastic bags that they're claiming can be used 120 times, which, we all know that's not going to happen. But I mean, I think it may be an easy fix for the town of Groton just to change the wording on that ordinance that we already wrote. Just
Yeah.
bump up the number.
it's probably twice as thick as the old plastic bag, right? But so it's still
Easily
pretty
twice,
thin.
I think. Yeah, easily twice.
But
So
the
much
ones they
less
sell,
degradable.
the ones that you sell in the store, or for real reuse, are order of magnitude thicker.
Yeah.
So it's pretty thick. And I've used reusable bags. I've had them for 10 years now, same set of bags.
Yep.
I mean, so these will not last. These bags will not last a month, I would say. I think that they're really stretching it, that says that they'll last. But if you give them away for free, people aren't going to save them and bring them back to the store and reuse them.
Nope.
So, so I think we supported that at our last meeting, Kristen. So
Okay, so tomorrow we're going to sit down and I think work on the drafting of the language. And so, like I said, whatever the standard, because a lot of towns are grappling with this. So everybody's rewriting and changing that number. So
What about the city of Groton? Has anything happened there? Are they on board with this whole thing, or are they still plastic straws, have a good time?
I don't know, but technically, now that I think of it, that particular CVS is in Stonington, and the other CVS is in the city of Groton, and I think it was Walmart is also in the city of Groton, right? So we may have no impact on any of them.
there is a Walmart. There's a Walmart on Gold Star Highway. Which
And we have a CVS on Long Hill Road too.
right, yeah. So we do have a CVS and
Okay.
and a Walmart.
So it is still relevant in our town because
Yeah, I mean,
other
it's-
bad
it's-
actors step in.
Yeah, it's a very targeted change because
Mhm.
almost all of the local businessmen, et cetera, aren't doing that.
Right.
I mean, they're kind of meeting not just the letter of the law, they're meeting the spirit of the law.
Right.
They're kind of, skirting certainly not meeting the spirit of the law, of the ordinance.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, any other new business that someone wants to raise? Nope. All right, yes, Michelle?
Move, we adjourn.
Is there a second? I see a second. All in favor? Aye. Okay,
Aye.
that's unanimous, and 7 o'clock. Wow. On the
Do we
dot.
meet in person next time, do we think, maybe?
No, I'm sorry, I did have one more thing, even though we ended it. I did ask that question, and right now it's been extended to the town meetings, of which we're part, was now April. So the March one, no. The April one, maybe. That's
Okay.
the answer to that.
All right. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Good night, everyone.